Everybody. Well, Happy New Year, and hopefully everyone had a great holiday season or holiday. I just wanted to just I'll introduce myself in a moment for those of you that might not have heard me talk before or know anything about my business, but I want to emphasize a word, and that word is holiday. Holiday is different than holomonth, and I emphasize that because the holidays are over. Now it's time to get to work. So I'm Greg Harrelson. I've known Preston Guyton. I'm actually in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where Preston Guyton is also lives and raises his family, and our kids go to school, same class, actually probably getting in trouble with each other right now in class. And so, my relationship, I am also a user of Easy Home. We have one of the exclusives in the Horry County, Myrtle Beach area. So, very not only familiar with Preston, but also familiar with Easy Home. I've been in the business for about 30 years. That shouldn't impress you by any means. But I have done a lot of production. And when I say a lot of production, and again, I'm not saying this to impress anybody, but just press upon you, kind of like, okay, who is Greg, right? Greg is not anything super. There's plenty of super people in the world, but we all are unique and do different things and have different experiences. I really built my business based on listings. I'm going to talk about conversion. I've had anywhere from 300 active listings at one time, depending on, 30 years. That means I've been through some downturns and some upswings. And, as an agent, sold well over 500 homes a year. And right now, I kind of run a team bridge, which means I own the brokerages, but I run them like teams. And we closed 4,019 transactions in 2025 for about $1.4 billion worth of volume. I coach agents how to convert. Today's conversation is about conversion. That's what Preston and I thought about for me is how do we convert? And I'm going to focus on the conversion of the seller leads. A lot of people will talk about there's plenty of coaching out there on conversion of buyer leads, right? There's things. I mean, if I was to ask everyone to chat for a minute or put in the comments like what's one of the golden rules of, conversion for buyer leads? Speed to lead. Okay. Everyone would know that, right? We've been beat up on speed to lead. Speed to lead, by the way, is real. It's important. But here's a concept with seller leads. Speed spooks. So a buyer's speed to lead is critical. But in seller leads, speed spooks. So somebody signs up on a website. Let's say you're an easy home search, you're getting your leads from them or some other service, Zillow, PPC. I mean, everything's about speed to lead, how fast, because the first person who talks to them. But what's interesting, and I have this, Easy Home actually provides seller leads to me. And what's interesting, when an agent calls the seller lead within the first minute, the seller lead's more likely to act like they didn't put their information in the system. The seller lead is notorious for saying, "No, Claudia, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sign up for anything. It wasn't me. Oh, maybe that was my husband." No, it was them. But when you approach a online seller lead too fast, it spooks them. Now, when I say, why am I using that? Spooks them. Because here's what they're experiencing when they get the call too fast. They get this like, dang, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I didn't want anybody to know. And they're really worried subconsciously that some information is now out to the public and they didn't want that to get out. Because maybe they haven't said, they haven't really talked to their job about relocating. They haven't told their children that they're thinking about moving. They're top of the funnel. They just wanted to go out there and explore and find out what their property was worth or see what a cash offer might be able to look like if they were to sell, if they did come into that, they started to come to that conclusion. And all of a sudden they realized we're going to call them. Most buyer leads we're getting these days when what's activating the capture is contact agent. Boom. So when they click the button for a buyer lead, usually the button says contact agent or some version of that. So what do they assume? When they click the button, they're going to be contacted by an agent. But when you look at how seller leads are actually captured online, it's find out what your home is worth. They put their email address in, and then all of a sudden they get this pop-up screen that has their evaluation. And they didn't know that your information was just transferred to an agent because it didn't say contact agent. The seller leads very rarely have a button that says contact agent. It usually says find out what your home's worth, get a cash offer, sell in 24 hours, close in 7 days. Oh, I gotta click that button. They weren't really, it wasn't as obvious that they were going to get a call. The reason why the companies capture the leads like that is because they know if they put contact agent, none of the sellers are going to click the button and there'll be no leads to capture. Or I should say, the volume would be significantly lower. So I give you this right from the jump on today's conversation because today's conversation is about seller lead conversion. I'm going to talk about how do we convert. And I'm going to talk about today not only the capture of the lead and going from capture to contact. Because, see, capture to contact is a ratio that is also not discussed too often. Most people will discuss capture to some sort of conversion, capture to an appointment. But I believe capture to contact and then contact to appointment. But let's not forget about capture to contact because how many leads do we generate? Do we receive where we actually captured them? We have their information. We made attempts, but we never contacted them. We never actually had the call, never talked to them. By the way, that's going to be probably 80% of the time. So we might go and spend the money that it takes to buy 100 leads and only talk to 20. So we pay for 100, but we only talk to 20, and 80 was loss, complete loss, because we never talked to them. So let me start there with contact to or with capture to contact ratio. Because if you're investing in leads, you want to make sure your capture to contact ratio is very high. We want to get that into the 60% range, not 20%, maybe 70%, but I think 60% is very, very real. How do we do that? We do that with an old strategy called double dial text. Call them, they don't answer. Don't leave a voicemail. Count to 5 seconds. Call them again. They don't answer. Don't leave a voicemail. Send a text. If you use double dial text, that right there will take you from probably 18 to 20% to probably 30%. Now, you might be thinking, double dial. Why would you do that? Well, let me ask you this. When your spouse or family member or loved one, somebody you really care about, when they call you, but you're like in the middle of something and you sit there and say, gosh, you know what? Gosh, Mitchell's calling, but I need to finish this. Okay, I'll call him back in a little while. But then all of a sudden, Mitchell calls you a second time immediately. What do you start to feel? Oh my gosh, who is this? I hope nothing's wrong. Let me pick it up, find out what they want. Just the double dial will instantly increase your capture to contact ratio. Now, if you do the double dial and they don't answer, they might be answered because they don't recognize your number. Who knows what it is? Go ahead and reveal who you are. Send them the text. These are opted in leads. Send them a text. Hey, I just tried to reach you. It's going to give you some information. I did a little bit of research on that property, XYZ Street. Just wanted to give you some information. Can you let me know when you might be able to chat? Something like that. Then all of a sudden, you now have a chance to get engagement going, and now there's two-way communication. That two-way communication, because they are busy at the moment or they didn't know who it was that was calling them. Now you've got two-way communication. Now that we've got two-way communication, you just increased your percent again. But let's just pretend that they didn't respond. Call them another time that day. Call them 3 times the next day. Send them 1 or 2 emails from some sort of automated workflow and text them again. Now, you might be thinking, because I hear this all the time, oh my God, I'd never. Okay, well, then you can keep paying for leads that you're never going to talk to, or we can take this activity and now we can have a capture to contact ratio of 60 plus percent. Now, if you go from 20%, 20 out of 100 to 60 out of 100, that's a 300% increase. If your skills never get any better, your closing skills, your dialogue never gets any better, and you just talk to 300% more people, you would do 300% more business. That's not compounding. That's just like you added more, so you got more. Now imagine if you did increase your skills. Now you're compounding. Now you're increasing your conversion ratios because your skills are getting better, and you're doing that. You got a higher conversion ratio on a higher number of contacts. Now that's compounding. Now it's not 300%, and that math is way beyond me because I wouldn't even know how to factor that in or calculate that on a damn calculator. But I know it's compounding, and the numbers get extraordinary at this point. So you got your capture to contact ratio. There's how we can improve that. Then we've got our contact to appointment ratio. Whether it's buyers or sellers, but I'm talking about sellers at this moment. Understand that seller leads. And if you guys are Easy Home, if you guys are clients of them, which if you're not, that's perfectly fine. I'm not selling the product. I'm just here sharing, in coaching on conversion. But I will let you know that I do get seller leads from them. So if you are getting them, if you want seller leads, you ought to talk to them about it. But in the event that you're getting those seller leads, you got to understand, or you go into this area of getting seller leads at some point from online services, you've got to understand their top of funnel leads. When I first got into real estate 30 years ago, a lead was because there was no MLS 30 years ago. There was an MLS, I guess, but it was all paper book. It was a big book that we got once a week. There was no online stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty old. Um, a good lead was somebody who already drove by a house, saw a sign, saw the front of the house, saw the neighborhood, drove around and knew where the grocery stores were, and then they called because they saw a sign. That's how we got our leads. So what do we know about those old school like sign calls? They're bottom of the funnel. These are people that have actually using their gas, they're using their time, driving through neighborhoods, looking at signs, they liked the curb appeal of the home, so then they dialed the number on the sign. That's bottom of funnel. If they didn't like the neighborhood, they weren't calling. Bottom of the funnel. But now majority of the leads come from online. In the barrier of entry, the effort required on the consumer side is extremely low in order to get the information. They don't have to drive around to see the curb appeal. They can look online. They don't have to call an agent to see the interior. They can look online. They can do walkability score, all kinds of, all kinds of data that they want to know from an agent they can get online. So because information is so easy, they don't have to be bottom of the funnel. They can be just top of the funnel bored because it's raining and they got nothing else to do and they can go in and retrieve this information and we capture them. They don't think an agent's going to call them, so they're freely going in putting their information in. So understanding that that's how the internet works now, that's how lead flow works now, then you have to understand that if you go in too fast and furious when you when you talk to them, you're going to actually turn them off. You do not say to an online seller, Tamitha, hey, I see you're thinking about selling, and I just wanted to give you a call and ask you some questions about your house and see if I can come over tomorrow, or would Friday be better? That is not a good script because they're like, what are you talking about? Who are you? I didn't do that because they're top of the funnel. So we have to understand, totally different than a buyer lead. So what would the conversation be with that lead? The conversation would be, hey, Tamitha, hey, I just wanted to touch base with you. I'm Greg Harrelson with XYZ Company. And, and I sent you some information regarding the value of your property over on XYZ Street. And I just kind of curious what you thought about that. It's an online evaluation. Did you think that was a little bit high, maybe a little bit low, or did you think that was just right? Tell me, what were your thoughts on that? Well, yeah, I looked at that and, it seems a little bit low to me, but we're really not thinking about selling. Hey, look, that's the thing about these online evaluations. Sometimes they're a little bit off and they really don't look at your home. I'm just kind of curious, how long have you lived in this neighborhood? And you just slowly get into the conversation. Now, you might be thinking this would be a fatal error. You might be thinking, well, Greg, top of the if they're top of the funnel, do I even want to deal with them? Well, here's going to be something interesting. Home value leads convert at 10%. That's an extraordinary conversion ratio. But when you talk to them, they will have you thinking that they're the worst leads that one could ever buy. But it's not true. There's a company out there called sold.com. I get some leads from them. And I used to use a company called Bold Leads. I don't use them anymore, but I used to. And it was really interesting. I use Fellow a lot, and in all of these systems, we can take all the leads that we captured, and because they're hooked up to the MLS, they can actually track whether or not they ever sold. So when I go back and look that I got 1,000 seller leads from this one company, and I'm like, well, gosh, I only sold 10 of them. Well, then I look in the portal and we track it through the MLS and the county courthouse records, and we see that 10% of them, 100 of them converted. So you got to understand that there's a difference between how they sound on the first call and how they convert. The reason why people are not converting more seller leads is because real estate agents get emotional about how they sound on the first call and they don't nurture them properly. If you just hear somebody say, no, we're not going to be selling, and you continue to follow up and nurture them, you'll see that they will, over time, through incubation, they will convert. And now you're 3 months, 6 months into this, and the people that you captured on day one are now converting. After 6 months, you have a steady flow of listings converting from the leads that you got 6 months prior. But to get real estate agents to do something consistently and stick with it and not give up for 6 full months to actually prove the system right is not easy to do. That's why I'm here to share with you what's really going on. Because see, most agents have a mission. Now they wouldn't say this. I just realized I am going to have to, this is crazy, but I am going to call my assistant right now. And you might be thinking, what the hell, Greg? because I'm going to have her bring my charger down here because I can see that in probably 10 minutes, I'm going to be out of a charger.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, can you bring my computer charger downstairs? I'm on a webinar and I probably only have 10 minutes. Bye. Okay. Interruption's over. Sorry about that. That's a night. Maybe I should start doing that. Maybe that was a little like pattern interrupt to get you all refocused. Anyways, well, shoot, I might have lost focus. But the reality is that right now, agents are more focused on proven systems wrong. My challenge to you is focus on proving them right. That little shift right there is the differentiation between a top producing agent that's converting listing leads and somebody that's not. The ones that are not are proving the system doesn't work. And the way that they're so successful at proving it doesn't work is by following the process for 90 days and quitting and then declaring it didn't work. But I've been following it for years. By the way, I didn't say this. I still do produce. And I think last year, I didn't really look at the numbers, but I probably closed 130 properties last year. And I did not make personally, thank you. I did not make one outbound call. All of my business was come list me calls because I've been doing what I'm coaching you today for so long that I've built databases and I'm nurturing such large databases that are all documented property owners and they're coming to me. So again, I say that not to impress you, but sometimes I've got to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from, what my experiences are. There are agents out there that are much greater than me, I can promise you that. But we all have some uniquenesses in us. We have all some kind of value that we can bring to a conversation like this. And one thing that I can bring to this conversation that if you will follow what I'm saying, I can promise you your business will grow in the area of listings. That's what I do. Okay. All right, moving on. So we went from capture to contact. We went from contact to setting an appointment. I want to go a little bit further now. I want to talk about because conversion is all a matter of from capture all the way to closing. So we've got the appointment. We've got them on the phone. Well, what can I share with you that now that I've got the appointment, how can I increase my conversion ratio at the appointment? There's multiple things that you can do, but I'll give you a little bit of a pre-appointment idea, and that is always ask this question. Well, what price are you hoping to sell the property for? Now, I already know that if we were open this up for dialogue and you guys really were in rapport with me, and felt emboldened to like speak your mind, I already know you would say, yeah, Greg, but every time I ask that, they say, well, you're the real estate agent. That's why I'm having you come over to tell me. That's not what they say to me. But let me tell you why they don't say it. Because see, in communication, words only impact the value of communication maybe 6, 7, 8%. Your tone, your inflection, is maybe 20 something percent. And your body language is maybe 70% of communication. I can prove it to you. Like if I say to you, shut up, look at my facial expression. Look at the tone. Look how I leaned in, body language. That's not like a feel good conversation right there. That's like I'm confronting you and we're about ready to go to blows. You're probably getting ready to hit me. But if I take the same words and I'm like, shut up, you see how quickly I used two words, changed inflection, tone, body language, facial expression, and without telling you, you automatically interpreted my communication different. See, usually we say, Tamitha, I mean, what price do you want to list it for? Or what price do you want to sell it for? That's not the question. The question is, Michael, I mean, tell me, what are you hoping to get for the property? And see, when I use the word hope, what are you hoping? I'm not asking you to be the professional and tell me a real number. I'm asking you to tell me personally what you're hoping for. And because I'm talking about you personally and you hoping, I'm not asking you what it's worth. But my tone and my inflection, I stuttered very, very intentionally because that helps it come across with more sincerity. But really, what I was looking for is not sincerity. I'm looking to demonstrate curiosity. So that one question gets me the answer. Well, I'm hoping to get 500,000. Okay, great. And tell me this. I mean, what are you going to be looking for in the agent that eventually you choose? Well, I'm going to want somebody that, and then they're going to label either marketing or communication or somebody that knows the market. They're going to tell you what they're looking for. Now I know what they're hoping for, and I know what they're looking for in an agent. So, guess what I do in tomorrow's presentation? I build both of those into the presentation so they get to find exactly what they're looking for. And they don't have to ask me. They don't have to wonder. Because if communication is one of the things that's like a major, major thing they're looking for, then communication will be added to my listing presentation 100% of the time. I may talk about communication all the time, but the truth is I don't. But if I know that communication is important, 100% of the time I will be addressing communication and to say, now, how does that work for you? Does that kind of fit what you're hoping to accomplish when it comes to a working relationship with an agent? Oh, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for. Of course, I knew that. They forgot that they told me that yesterday or the day before. And they're happy that I built it into the conversation. They just don't understand. They think that was just natural. That's dramatically increasing my conversion ratio. See, ideally, I want you to contact more people you capture. And then I want you to set appointments with more people that you contact. And now I'm wanting you to list more that you presented to, of the appointments that you went on. See, each one, if we increase it a little bit, it compounds on another. And next thing you know, you can find yourself doubling your business. If you ever do, there's a great coaching event that Tony Robbins does, and it's called Business Mastery. I've done it 4 times. It's like a 5 days business mastery course. It's intense. I've never been in something so where you're immersed so much in it. It give you a headache. There's no doubt about it. You're exhausted. But he talks about optimization. And in the area of optimization, it's not about like let's like improve something from a 1 to a 10. If we can take something that's a 5 on the scale of 10 and get it to a 6, and then something else a 6 to a 7, and something else that's a 7 to an 8, and we just kind of like subtly improve and optimize a few different areas, it compounds to be an extraordinary increase in revenue. That's what I'm talking about here. I'm not wanting to like say you need to reinvent yourself. I'm saying to dramatically improve your conversion. If you do this when you capture something, and you do this when you contact the person, and you do this when you're presenting to them, you are golden. Now we're at the presentation because all that was pre-presentation. I just want to learn the scenario before I actually present. Now I'm presenting. I'll just give you a tip and then I'll move on to the next one. In the presentation, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that when you present, you never present a price. You present a price range. Now, I'm not saying it's a broad price range. This is not a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. Yeah, anywhere from like 300,000 to 500,000. No, 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 it's not a gimmick. It's very, very thought through. You don't present a price because an appraiser can't even determine the price. An appraiser can give you by law an opinion of value. And how many times is an appraiser given an opinion of value and the property sold for a little bit more or a little bit less? All the time. And how many times have we had two or three appraisers come in and every one of them is a different price, but they're all within the same range? And based on an opinion of value, which is the legal definition of an appraisal, it's acceptable for them to not be the same number. It's acceptable by the banks for it to be within a range because everyone's going to have a different way of evaluating. Then the real estate comes in, agent comes in and starts giving one price. It's like, what? How do you know? And doesn't price and time go together? So if somebody said they wanted to sell in 30 days, you got to be careful at giving them the price when the average community average sale in that neighborhood is 5 months, or the opposite. Somebody is okay with it taking 4 months. They want the highest price, and you give them a 30-day price. No, my suggestion to dramatically increase the number of listings you take from these leads, you give them three prices. You give them a fair market value, which is the one price most agents would give. Then you give them a price a little bit above that, full disclosure to them, not you're not no gimmicks here, a little bit above that. And how do you determine that? You determine that based on what is the ceiling, that if you go over the ceiling, it's got no chance to sell. And then you give them a price that's a little bit below that. How do you determine that? That's the price that's based on fair market value minus some dollars that would cause a property to sell immediately. When I'm presenting price, I give them three prices. That would be my price range. But with the price, I also give them two other numbers for each price. I give them this is what you would net if you sold at this price, and this is the estimated time it would take. So, hey, look, at 500,000, you would net somewhere around, let's say 475,000. I'm not doing the math. $470,000. And it would probably take you around, 4 to 5 months based on what the market's indicating right now. At 490, at 489.9, or I'll use round numbers, 490, you would net around 460,000. And based on the market, the last few that priced around there and sold that was similar to yours took around 60 days to get a property sold. And the ones that sold in less than 60 days, like the 10 days, the 30 days, on average, they're priced more around 479.9. Of course, their net's a lot less at 450, but they accomplished speed of sale. So, Tamitha, I guess what I would ask you is based on what you're looking to accomplish, the price you want to get, how fast you'd want it sell, and then, of course, looking at what you would net, tell me what pricing strategy should we start with? They choose a price based on what? The expectations of time. So if they choose a price, the high price, they know that so what are they doing? They're choosing money over time. If they choose the low price, they're choosing time over money. Most people will choose the middle price. They don't want to be greedy, but they don't want to give it away. So they choose the fair market value. So don't worry, you're not going in and going to get all these high price listings now because number one, you're the one determining what the top price is. I'm determining it. It's the top price is still a price I'm willing to take the listing. But by giving the three prices, I also get to expose the bottom price, the aggressively priced property, but not doing it in a way where I'm telling them that's what their property's worth. I'm saying that's what it would take to accomplish this time frame. And what you'll end up with is a lot more listings because you gave them choice. You involved them in the decision versus you saying, hey, this is the price. And then what do they think? Well, we're going to have to think about it. I just eliminated a lot of the we're going to have to think about it because I've given them a price range, but I've explained to them the pros and cons of each pricing point. And then I've empowered them to tell me which pricing strategy should we start with? Just think about that question. Which pricing strategy should we start with? What am I assuming? Oh, that you've already chosen me. We just need to choose the price. You're not choosing me. That's I can't. I'm here. I'm listing the property. Tell me what price are we putting on the listing? Dramatically will increase your conversion from appointment to listing taken. Now, I had to add this into my presentation of this because I talk about this with a lot of agents in my offices, right? I coach them on things like this all the time. And one of the things that we have to add into this conversation now is, with the market being the way it has been, there's inventory kind of sitting on the market. Now, maybe not of all your markets. Some of you guys might be in markets that are like still like crazy good, right? But a lot of us are experiencing additional days on the market, which leads to additional frustration with the seller, which leads to awkward conversations between a seller and an agent, which leads to more properties expiring and withdrawal or cancels. So now we've got to be thinking about, well, Greg, how do we make sure that we maintain a high conversion ratio of listing taken to listing sold? Okay, good. It's called a price reduction. But real estate agents don't like to do price reductions. I understand most real estate agents don't like to do price reductions for two reasons. Number one, because they presented one price in the beginning. And if you present one price, then that means you take ownership in that price. If you present three and ask them which one we should start with, they own the price. So if you take ownership in the initial listing presentation, then it's hard to go back for a price reduction because they're going to say, well, you're the one that told us. I never told them anything. I gave them a range. They chose where they chose. So that's step number one. That's one reason people don't want to ask for a reduction is because they feel like they're actually now contradicting themselves. Step number two, they took the listing and didn't communicate for the last couple of weeks with the seller and give them updates. And they don't want the first conversation that they have with the seller to be a price reduction conversation. I've learned that's why most of us don't go for price reductions. So when I look at that and say, well, that's easy solutions. The key is you've got to have a process. When you take a new listing, what is your communication process? What do you do on week one? Week one, you should do something like, hey, just wanted to communicate with this, even can be an email or text with an invitation for them to call you, which a lot of times they won't call you if it's a thorough email or text. They'll be satisfied with the email and text if you give them enough value in it. So after week one, you just make sure there's communication. Hey, just wanted to check in with you. All of these things, we did this and we did this and we did this. I'm continuing to monitor this. Next week, you can expect me to send you this. Email goes out, text goes out, whichever way you want to do it. Week number two, you deliver what you told them you were going to deliver when you message them in week number one. Maybe that is a showing report. Maybe it's an update on something else. We give updates on like how much traffic they had on our website. We give updates, little various things like that. Week number three, send them something else like a CMA. Hey, check out this CMA. I wanted you to look at this, highlight something, and say, I'm going to give you a call in a couple of days. I just kind of want to, talk through the process and whatnot, and just kind of, give you an update as to where we are. Next thing you know, you call them, and now you go for a price reduction. But what we call this is the communication up until the first reduction request gives us permission to ask for the reduction. So we have to, we call it this. We need to earn the right to ask for an adjustment. The way that you earn the right is communicate, 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 ask. That would be like a Gary V, right? Gary Vee, a big marketing guy, he talks about jab, 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 right hook, which is give, 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 ask, give, 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 ask. Three gives, one ask. Three gives, one asks earns you the right to ask for a price reduction, and they no longer are going to say, well, what have you been doing? You've already been telling them what you've been doing. And then you ask. You've been given and given and given. If you don't give, you just ask, then they're going to say, well, what have you been doing? Well, I didn't see any advertisement. I didn't see any of this. Are you just one of those people put in the MLS? Did you do anything else? We want to avoid all that. And the way we avoid that is earning the right to ask for a reduction, which is communicate by giving, giving, and giving the first 3 weeks of having a listing. Now, every one of your markets could be different, right? If your average days on the market is 60 days, then you might adjust the way that you communicate. My average market is going to be around in between. It's probably around 110 days right now, somewhere in that range. So we're doing a reduction every 3 weeks. If the event that the property is not selling, we're going and having that conversation again, influencing the conversion ratio of listings taking to listings closed, listings sold. So what I just walked you through, now I could probably speak all day on this because I could have gotten very granular on each ratio, but we talked about capture to contact, contact to appointment set to listing taken, and listing taken to listing closed. And I gave you a tip, one or two tips in each one of those, that if you did nothing more than that, because it compounds the way it does, it can dramatically influence your production. All right, Bailey, that was what I had. And I don't know if there's any questions or whatnot. I wasn't really paying attention, but I have a few more minutes. We had an hour allocated. It doesn't mean we have to stay that long, but I did have a few more minutes for any kind of questions, comments. I'd be happy to hear. You can reject everything I said. You can fight me and we can debate a little bit, whatever you want to do, but I'm here to answer any questions, share anything more.
Thank you, Greg. If anybody has any questions, unmute yourself, ask away. Take the opportunity while you can.
Somebody's got to break the
Yeah, I have a
ice.
question.
Okay, great.
You had mentioned to when you sit down with them out of the listing appointment to ask them what they would personally like to sell their house for. And
I said hope.
oh, hope.
Hope.
What
Yeah,
if
because like is going to be dangerous. I don't want to know what they would like to sell it for because that's coming down to. So finish your question, but I just wanted to emphasize the word hope. But finish your question, and then I'll kind of go into my thoughts.
Okay, and that makes a little more sense to me, because my thought was asking them. We've always said, what do you think your house is worth? Because then we can show them on comps. So I guess your opinion on the difference of those two ways of saying it.
I think both of them. Well, okay, so it depends on what our intention is at the moment. So, Don, if I was to call you today and I was to set an appointment with you, and I'm going to set the appointment for Friday, okay? While I'm on the call today, it's Wednesday. I'm going to say, Don, hey, tell me a little bit more about your property, and we're going to establish some rapport. You're going to tell me all about your property. Hey, let me ask you this. I mean, what are you hoping to get for the property? And your guard's going to be really low at this moment. Okay. And you're going to say, well, and so here's what I'm listening for. And this is very important. What I'm listening for is not really what you say. I'm listening for how you say it. So tell me, what are you hoping to sell it for, Don? I mean, what are you hoping to get for it? I actually don't use the word sell. What are you hoping to get for it? And you may respond like this. Well, you know, I mean, I'm kind of hoping we can get 500,000 for it. Well, here's what I know. If you respond like that, then I already know that there's no chance in hell you're getting 500,000. But I use the word hope. So you're giving me kind of like your hope, but I'm listening to your breathing pattern in this situation. And you did an exhale when you told me, well, see, I said the word well and exhaled at the same time. When somebody gives you an exhale, that's exactly what they do when they feel like they're getting ready to get punched in the stomach. It's a way to absorb a shock. And so that subconsciously occurring in the call tells me that you don't believe 500,000. So I already know going into the presentation that I'm feeling good that if I tell you the price is going to be 490, I know that you're hoping to get 500, but I know you're going to probably actually agree with me because you don't really have confidence in your 500 number. See what my intention is? My intention with the question that you're posing to me, Don, which is, tell me what you think your property is worth. That can be a great question, but that question wouldn't be a great question for the intention that I have for asking the question that I'm asking when I'm asking it. So if I want to influence my listing present my listing conversion ratio at a listing appointment, think of it me and you are playing poker. When I use the what are you hoping to get? That's basically like me and you are sitting at a poker table and I say, Don, show me your cards real quick. And you show me your cards, and I realize, holy crap, she's got three aces. I'm folding. Or I realize she's got nothing. She's bluffing. So what I'm doing, what's influencing the conversion is that question allows me to see your cards. And I'm not going to address it at that moment. I'm going to bank it. And in the presentation, I can adjust my presentation knowing what your cards are. I'll know what cards I need to play because I've already seen your cards. The question you're bringing up and the question that I'm bringing up are both great questions. It's just you can see I'm using mine strategically for a different reason. And that's before I get to the presentation, not at the presentation. It will not work at the presentation. Good question. Kelly says, do you ask that question on the first call with the seller lead? Only Kelly, only in the event that I'm setting an appointment. So my answer would be not all the time. So if I'm talking to them and let's just say I'm talking to you and I can identify that you might be like 3 months down the road, okay? And we're not setting an appointment today. I'm not asking that question. I'm going to go more into fact finding, understanding, discovery. Tell me a little bit about your property. What kind of condition is it in? So I'm going to get you really talking about your property, how great it is, and all the updates. I actually don't really care that much, to be honest with you, about all the stuff that you're saying. But I actually, what I care about is it's crazy. I monitor this thing called word count. Have you ever like written an essay or a document and you look at the word count at the bottom? Okay, so here's something interesting about word count. And have you all heard Nikki talk? I'm sure y'all have, if you've been around Easy Home at all. Nikki talks about a 2-minute call, right? And I think it's a brilliant thing that she talks about. I talk about word count. And when I realize that Nikki and I are kind of like saying something very similar, we're just monitoring it different. The higher the word count of the seller, the more rapport I'm going to build. So if I'm dealing with somebody that is 3 months down the road and I might not be going on an appointment right now with them, then my goal on that call is to make sure their word count is really high. So I'm going to trigger conversation like, tell me a little bit about your property. What kind of condition is it in? Oh, well, it's in good condition. That's a low word count right there. Okay, well, good. I suspect it was in good condition. What kind of updates have you done to it? Well, I just did the HVAC and then I did this and then I did that and then I did this and we're going to do this. And then now you see the word counts going up. And I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, yeah. They're being heard. Rapport, and there's a direct correlation between word count and rapport in this scenario. Kelly, that's what I'm going to be doing with the lead at this stage. Then I'm going to nurture that lead. And let's assume I'm back in the conversation. I set an appointment. That's when I would be asking, though, what do you hope you could get for your property? Awesome. I'm glad you brought that up because I like to talk about word count. It is very It's a very valuable tool for conversion. All right. Anything else? I can't imagine that I addressed everything, but that's okay. Claudia Shavaria. Did I say that name right? No, there's no way I said the last name right. Ask me a question. Do you have a question by chance? No, it's okay if you don't.
Hey, I got a question for you, Greg.
Go
What
for it,
sort of
Joe.
presentation are you doing? Is it digital? Is it print?
Oh boy, you really asked me a good one there. It's so funny. A yellow notepad. I look at Lauren. I can see Lauren laughing. She knows what I'm going to say. It's a freaking yellow notepad.
So everything's just verbal.
Yep. Wow. I'm getting ready to go pick up a listing in just a minute. When we're done, I'm going to take myself off a blur so I can actually prove to you that holy shit, Greg's really going in with a yellow notepad. There's my presentation. Here's my folder. Taking this yellow notepad. I will walk out with a listing.
What's in the folder?
A CMA so I can reference it. So I actually deciphered the CMA. I kind of like did my notes of the CMA on my yellow notepad so I don't have to fumble through paper. So I can just work off of my one pager. But if I need to go in, if they ask me a question, maybe about a specific property, I can go to the CMA and reference maybe the details on heated square feet or a garage and something like that. I don't pull it out unless they ask a question that I might not have written down on my yellow notepad. It's got there is a picture, like a printout of my ad budget, so I can show that I do have buyers. And so, like, let's say, like Zillow is not something that I do. I don't spend money on a monthly basis on Zillow like I used to, but when I did, I would have take my Zillow budget and actually print that out. So maybe my PPC budget and print that out. And so they can see that, I would say something like, Joe, I'm kind of one of those old school agents. I still invest money in marketing to actually get my property sold versus just putting it in the MLS and waiting for other agents to sell it. And I know maybe a lot of agents will say that, but I just wanted to kind of verify here. You can see what I'm investing my money in and how, when I say I have buyers, how I'm kind of validating that, no, I legitimately have buyers and I'm showing you how I get them. Which I know my competition is saying, oh, I have buyers, but they're not showing them that they have buyers. I'm showing them I have buyers. And when I show it in a presentation, it's totally different than when I say it in a presentation. And then I've got the actual documentation that they've got to sign. That's all that's in that folder. Now, I'm old school. Okay. I understand that if for those of you that are using, iPads and all that, good for you. Great. Maybe you're converting at extraordinary levels because I've got partners in my own office that do it. They're doing something very similar to me because I coach them, but they're doing it more electronically. I'm just afraid. Heck, my battery almost died on this webinar. I'm that guy. My battery's going to die in the middle of the freaking presentation. I just did it with you. I'm going to do it with my sellers too. I'm sticking with the yellow notepad. That's what I know.
We've got one more question in the chat from
Let's
Dan
do
who
it.
mentioned speed to lead can be intimidating. When you make the call on average, what is the turnaround time and how do you open that conversation?
Okay, good. Now, Dan, I just want to reference one more time. I am referring to seller leads. I believe speed to lead is critical for buyer leads. Okay, so I want to make that differentiation so there's no confusion. Your next question is something I didn't answer, and I'm glad you asked me. Okay, so how much time will I let go by when I capture a seller lead and I call? I think that's what you're asking, Dan. If that's the question that you're asking, my answer to you would be up no more than a day. Okay, great, Dan. So what I'm saying is it's not like within 5 minutes, but it can be within 4 hours. It can be the next day if you got it in the afternoon. But what you don't want it to be is multiple days. Don't want it to be multiple days. So I'm talking like within a day, preferably 4 or 5 hours. not 5 minutes and not multiple days, but preferably in 4 to 5 hours. But it's going to depend. Like at 5 o'clock, that's going to be the next day if it came in at 5 o'clock. I'm not calling them at 5:05, and I'm not working past 4 anyway. So I wouldn't be calling them either way.
Perfect. Any
So,
last minute questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
I have a question.
okay, Michaela.
How do you negotiate your commission, considering now a lot of agents are lowering their commission?
Well, okay, another great one. So think about my pricing presentation. My pricing presentation, three prices, three nets, three nets. What does that mean? Commission was already discussed. Three nets means I calculated net factoring in commission. So three prices, three nets, and three average days on the market. So if somebody does ask me about commission, I can say whatever my commission is, but it doesn't change the numbers because when I say what price should we start with, here's the nets. They're already choosing my commission because they're accepting the net. It's baked into the net. See, it's just like real estate agents. Real estate agents are always talking about like, "Oh, I'm going to leave my agent, my company because I can get a better commission." Well, then leave if that's what you're looking for, but stay if you're looking for more net. Because all I care about is net. If you want to make more net, stick with me. If you want to make more, like have a bigger number, go somewhere else, get your big number and net less. Because more doesn't mean more. That's not how it works. And the same thing works with the sellers. Like in absence of a net conversation, they need to talk about commission. When net appears, when net is a focal point of the conversation, they have no need to talk about commission. Now, somebody could still talk about it, but then it becomes a little bit, I've kind of like taken some of their leverage away. Because when they say this price, meaning they accepted that net, and then they want to beat me up on the commission, well, they've already accepted the net. So then what is this, a principal conversation, or is this really dollars and cents? It's not dollars and cents anymore because they've already accepted the dollars and the cents. Now it's principal. And you know what? They have a hard time fighting on principle when they've already accepted the net.
How do you, when you do your net sheet, do you put your commission there for them to see it, or do you just put the purchase price, what their current mortgage is left, and then you just give them the math like that for their net?
Yeah. I do not give them a net sheet. I do not factor in a net sheet. I take their price and I times it by the percent that I know that their closing costs are going to be, including a buyer's agent and compensating a buyer's agent and a listing agent. And then I give them a raw net number, bottom line number. Remember, I've done this a lot, right? So I know like what net sheets do, right? Net sheets, you guys, I just give them the bottom number because when you itemize a net sheet, what do? What's that? What's Dean stamps? Who gets that? Who cares? You're gonna have to pay it. If you know who gets it or you don't know who gets it, you're paying it. This is the number. So I just learned for conversion purposes, if we have this net sheet drawn out. Now, look, I'm giving you my answer. You can do it however you want to do it. And I have agents in my own office that do it different than me because they can't stand the thought of not being as detailed and meticulous. So, but what I will say is that detail will end up creating more dialogue than I think is necessary. And then now I'm addressing like this item, which is a termite inspection, a CL 100 for $185. Well, I mean, do I have to pay that? Well, in the state of South Carolina, you don't have to pay anything in anywhere, but traditionally in the state of South Carolina, typically it falls on the seller side. In North Carolina, it falls on the buyer side. So I can, I can go through all that, but why do I need to go all through that? I just go ahead and factor in their net before I go there. And I have at this price, they'll net this, at this price, they'll net this, at this price, they'll net this. So I don't have to get into that, what I think is unnecessary conversation. Now, for a lot of people, that's intimidating, but if you saw me present it, it would make a lot of sense. But it can be intimidating when you hear somebody like me say that because you're not getting coached like that within your companies. I can assure you the broker in charges are not coaching you like that. But maybe they should. Because when you issue a net, you're going to have to actually deliver on that net sheet. Every single item at the closing. Well, it's 187, and you said it was 185. Just a thought. Now, don't go to your broker and say, well, Greg said I don't have to give you. You might have that as a standard policy, but I will be transparent and answer your question, Michaela. And thank you for asking.
Wonderful. That's time, everybody. Thank you, Greg, so much for coming on our Winning Wednesday and dropping all that knowledge on us. I hope everybody has tons of notes in front of them. The recording will be up as soon as it's available. You will get emailed as well. And then next week is the Shut Up and Dial, same time, 12 noon, 9 Pacific. I'm sorry, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. We will see you next week. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.